Hello, everybody. Welcome you to the informal talk with the AIT extensions again. As you know that we have this program twice a month. We are normally having the program on the first of the month and also on the mid of the month. So in this program, sometime I myself, Warrawet Cholasin, will be going to be the speaker and also telling you the stories and also give you some ideas and knowledge. And also sometimes we also invite the experts and also the practitioners to the program so that they can also exchange the knowledge with the audience. So today, as you notice from our banner, you can see that our topic is very popular and also very suitable for the situation today, especially in the pandemic of the COVID-19, and also maybe in a situation where the business cannot go in a normal way because of interruptions of some kind. Like we have in Thailand, we used to have a flood in 2011. That was also the disruption or interruption from the environment, and also some other incident that is happening that the business have to move on. So we are picking up the topics that might be very interested to you, and also maybe you can use also for your businesses and for your future knowledge and future practice for your works. So we name the topics today as the business continuity management, or BCM, and we are very honored that we have the practitioners, resource person and speaker, which is coming from one of the partners, from the collaborators of AIT, and we will also listen from the speaker, from the expert, that how we are going to apply this BCM in our day-to-day life, in our businesses, and also in our organizations. So our speaker today is Dr. Wilfred Herman. Dr. Wilfred is the director of the HDFF, which is the international NGO, which is in Thailand, and the full name of the HDFF is the Human Forum Foundation, and he has a lot of experience from his background on security management, and also he's also used to serve in the army attaches with many countries. He got PhD on the international relations, and also focusing on the ASEAN and also on Thailand and various countries in ASEAN. And also he run businesses. He served as the resource person. So Dr. Wilfred, we have a lot of many things to share with the audience. And then I believe that from his presentation, from his conversation today, you will get a lot of knowledge from him. So Dr. Wilfred, can you introduce yourself, and maybe you can share with us what you have in mind about the BCM today?
Thank you, Kun Voravet. And we are long-term friends since more than 10 years. We work together with Kun Voravet and the team behind the camera. So I'm very happy to be here and your resource person. Thank you for the nice introduction. And I would like to just jump into the topic to get things done so that we have a clear schedule ahead and can fill this 1 hour with some important information. The idea of business continuity management is, in general, why we need that. It's a kind of framework for identifying an organization's or business risk of exposure to internal or external threats. And this includes disaster recovery, crisis management, incident management, and of course contingency planning. So with that, I would say we can start very simple. What is the idea of business continuity management? The idea is very simple: to be back in business if crisis struck as soon as possible. Why we need to have that? Because nowadays, or let's go back 50 years ago, the option, if one of your goods what you want to have is not available, you have to wait. But today, almost everything what you have is there in a broad variety. And just a few people are sticking to brands. If you don't get your flour or if you don't get your vegetables from this farmer, you go to the next farmer. So with that means you don't have a branding loyalty. And you have a lot of competitors, so if your business is out for a while, then you may be out forever. So this is why the idea is business continuity management, back in business after a crisis as soon as possible. Okay, to get to the details, I would say that we start looking at how to create a business continuity plan. And one of the things what we have to start first, if you are a business, is you should look around for the regulatory review and the landscape in which you are working,
Right.
which means international law, national law, local laws, but also industry-specific requirements. What I'm talking about is, for example, if you want to build up a factory, you need the environment impact analysis first.
Right.
Otherwise, you will be not allowed from the local or state government or even international laws to build up a factory. So this is one of the first steps. You have to fulfill all these kind of things. And then on top comes that the requirements from investors, from donors, people who say, okay, I give the money to you, but you have to do this, 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 this. Actually, in the moment, it's very much on human rights. If you look at the discussion about cotton from the Uyghurs, so H&M has problems with the Chinese government because they said they will not use the cotton anymore from China. So human rights is one topic, but also environmental rights. And investors will say, okay, we will give you money if you make a green investment or a green industry plant.
Right.
And so these are, let's say, the framework
Right.
before you set up the company or before you even start thinking. And if you go for business continuity, you have to check if you really fulfill
Right.
all the details of these requirements.
Right, right. So this means that we before we are changing from plan A to plan B, we have to scan through all the requirements which is maybe required by the governments, or maybe be required by the regulators, or maybe required by the someone who are giving money to invest or to invest, so that we can see through, and also we can prevent from anything that could happen, because that will allow us to be able to adjust to the environment, to the new environment, so that if we will not fail along the way, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's more or less the summary of this topic. And the next step would be, if we have a business, we have to look and to make look at the risk and make a good risk assessment.
Right.
So the risk assessment will start first of the definition. What is a crisis for my business? Of course, the crisis in, for example, the Suez Canal, the big ship which was blocking the Suez Canal for almost 1 week. Will it affect my business? Maybe not directly, but there were reports that, for example, in Germany, they said if this blockage is more than 2 weeks, some of the goods we will not have in Germany anymore to sell in the supermarket.
Right.
On the other side, you have the business continuity for the crisis of North Korea. Is there any kind of nuclear war coming up, which is very remote, but still one option? You have the crisis in Myanmar, you have the crisis of COVID, the pandemic, which is discussed many times, so I will not discuss this here. And of course, crisis is very individual. So for some people, the crisis is that they don't get lunch at 12 o'clock. So then they come really in a personal crisis. Crisis is very individual, and this is one of the problems what you have as a crisis manager. You cannot just look from the baseline of the company. You also have to look for the individuals. So one of the ways is what we recommend, that once you draw all these plans and make this kind of risk assessment, also give to everybody from your staff a kind of list for the 10 worst things what could happen to them. So you get a kind of ownership. And I will come to this back later, but already now, if you don't have ownership from your whole team, crisis management plan will fail. Because if someone doesn't follow the rules or the developments, then it will fail. So ownership you can get if every people feel that they are part of it. So not just from the top set up and to say, okay, our crisis is the Suez Canal, and as a worker coming here every day to the Bangkok traffic, I don't care much about the Suez Canal. I care about Bangkok traffic, car accident, rain, this kind of things. So that's one of the things, the definition of crisis. And crises are normally turning points for companies. If you face a crisis, you have two options. You survive or you are dead.
Right.
And the numbers are very clear. 80% of the companies who face a major disaster in the last 5 years, 80% of these companies were out of business. If they don't have any preparation, then they are dead. Simply like that. So after you come with the crisis and to include some of the feedbacks from your staff, the next thing is you go on a very simple way to say, we build up a crisis management team.
Okay. Yeah.
The worst thing what you can do is you do the crisis management alone in a small room, and you come out with a perfect plan and nobody understands.
Right.
So setting up a crisis management team demands a lot of leadership, and also demands that you choose the right people into the team.
Right. So can I interrupt? So this crisis management team, that the team we have to set in advance, or we will set when we have the crisis. So how the organization structure should be built in order to prepare for that? Is that at the beginning? Is that when the crisis happens? So how they are going to invest on this one?
Okay, this brings us a little step back. Thank you for that. The crisis management team will be established before the crisis starts.
Right.
So because business continuity management is or should be part of the philosophy of the company.
Right.
So it should be part of the company from the beginning onwards. If it's not included in the business, then there can be a lot of loopholes leading to failures, fatal failures. So this crisis management team will be permanently there. And they have also to meet even if there's no crisis. Because 2019, nobody was thinking about COVID.
Exactly, yeah.
So to set up a team 2020 when the first COVID wave is already here is far too late.
Right.
For this kind of, let's say, incident, we have, later on we will talk about that, we have an incident management team. So these are ad hoc teams, but the crisis management team is more strategic and give the background and give the guidelines where the business, the company should go if a crisis happens. So it should be part of the philosophy and part of the meetings. So everybody can ask yourself, if you are working in a company, how many times the crisis management team will meet And if you are an employee on the middle or lower level, do you ever know that there is a crisis management team? Because if there's not enough communication, it's also a problem. So, crisis management team, who belongs to the crisis management team? Normally, the CEO or the president or the head of organization, and then the executive director, general manager, the ones who make the operations. IT, definitely. Without IT today, you cannot do anything.
Very important, yes.
Finance, often overlooked. So many people don't put the finance people into the crisis management team. But then if you have to evacuate people, you have to rent vans, you have to buy flight tickets for emergency evacuation for longer distance, or you have one office in Vietnam and it has to be evacuated. You want to bring the people back. If there's no money, there's no plan. Right. So finance is very important. Of course, human resources and project managers. So it looks a big team. Yes, it is, because it's important for the whole organization that it works. So all detailed part of the organization should be looked at, especially in the risk management. The risk management for a financial manager is risk assessment is different from the HR. So in this sense, it's important that you have all the key personnel in, and please don't forget the fleet manager for the cars and also the maintenance for buildings or whatsoever. If you have to leave buildings, who is the last one who put the switch off? Who is making sure that all the electricity is out or is running, is up again if there is an electricity problem. So it's a big team, and basically everybody should be in contributing to the business as a whole. So once we have set up the crisis management team, the next step is to look at the vulnerabilities, because the general rule is that the risk is a sum of the threats on the one side and the vulnerabilities on the other side. So vulnerability, talking about, for example, fire. Nowadays we have a lot of electricity, a lot of computer, so shortcuts can be possible. And the threat is that the shortcut lead to a fire. If you have carpets, it can give a very smoldering fire. So the vulnerability is that many organizations save the money on the wrong place. They say, okay, we have the sprinkler, and with that we are safe. But if you wait till a sprinkler really is activated from a fire,
right,
so it takes a time, and the flame and the smoke from the smoke detector has to be quite high. And then on top, once the sprinkler is initiated, after the sprinkler is initiated and it's finished, the room will be about 5 to 10 centimeters underwater. So guess what happened to your laptop and all your technical equipment? You can just throw it away. Solution? Buy a fire extinguisher. For every small area, you buy a fire extinguisher, which is about $20, and you can save a lot of secondary damages. It's a small investment, but of course finance will say why we need that, because it's expensive and in the first moment we don't have a return of investment.
Right.
And that's the problem for all security and safety people. You don't have immediately a return of investment.
Right.
The best thing what you can get is a zero. Nothing happened.
Right.
So buy the fire extinguishers and be sure that you train the people on that.
Right.
Not that they think it's just a nice decoration in the room,
Right.
but really know how to use it.
Right.
The different levels. So, and this is what is the threat, is the fire. The vulnerability is that you don't take care much of the detail. So you wait for the sprinkler, but you don't have a fire extinguisher.
Exactly. So that's why very important that the crisis management of the entities has to be part of the organization strategy. So they have set up front with the plans to do so, with the resources, and also with the a longer term that how they can benefit from that. So that is should be part of the long term of the business strategy. So it's very important.
Yeah. So the next step would be to look also for warning signals. And now we have to see, we are still in the strategic level. We are in a crisis mode, but not in the incident mode.
Yeah.
Now, so the strategic level means you have to see what are warning signs. If you look, for example, what happens actually in the car industry, now, so Tesla built up the electronic car, now, and put a lot of batteries out and put all the cars on electronic. And the big car makers like Toyota, like Volkswagen, they didn't see these warning signals very early. So Tesla already had a kind of head start, no? And they sold already thousands and 10,000 of cars before the big players coming in and saw, okay, that's substantial business and it's endangering our businesses because now the old kind of engine will be forbidden at one stage for environmental protection, climate change. And now suddenly you see from the last 1.5 years that the big car makers suddenly go 100% on the way like Tesla. And yeah, Tesla now is the star, but most likely overrun from the others at one stage because head start is good, but if you are not really big all over the world, at one stage you fail.
Right.
So warning signals are very important. I have to see the warning signals also down in the business for my own people. We have now the pandemic, so many people work from home. This means also what we have increasingly are psychological stress. We have burnout at home, and we have at the moment in Thailand the highest suicide rate we ever had. So many people commit suicide because they don't have social contacts, they don't have a future, they don't see where to go. So, and there are also warning signs. If people suddenly disappear from the communication, if people corner themselves and not open anymore, so they have a problem. So warning signs are all over, from the individual till the strategic level. And as a leader, as a business continuity management leader, I have to sensitize my leaders in the organization to see these warning signs and to report them back. So if we have burnout people, if we have suicide endangered people, if you have a strategic shift in our product, all this need to be back reported, and then the crisis management team has to see what we can do with that, and they have to develop the plans.
Yeah, I mean that's from various perspectives. I mean, we can see that those guys in the crisis management team has to be able to look into at the individual level and go deep dive into the maybe psychologies, health, and also the impact on their social life before giving them the environment of the working from home. So I think it is beyond a normal day-to-day management, and this team actually need to have a lot of expertise and experience in various dimensions. And it look like that the team cannot work alone. They have to work with specialists and scientists in the company to be able to understand what will be a possible risk and also exposure to the risk and also vulnerabilities which are going to affect after the business change to different locations or environments or the way of the operation. It's very, very, very detailed works, and it's actually need a lot of kind of general management, at the same time going deep down into very detailed works, going to the individuals, to the team, to operation.
And it also needs, the consideration for the individual.
Yes.
If you look at your workforce as workforce only,
Right.
and not as colleagues,
Right.
then there will be a problem.
Yeah.
Because workforce is someone who can be replaced easily.
Yeah.
But in nowadays world, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
So the way is to say we need psychological or psychosocial support systems, and most of the industries and companies don't have that. And you cannot have also the inside expertise in that. So you need to go to outside expertise. You
Yes.
need psychologists, you need psychiatrists to
Yes.
help in that, especially in terms of tutoring, mentoring,
Right.
just counseling.
Right.
But normal smaller businesses or medium businesses, they don't have a counselor inside the
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is one part. And also inside the organization, the problem is confidentiality. People will not trust someone who is inside the organization, because maybe I have to tell something and then I'm scared that this person will tell to the big boss and I have repercussions.
Right.
So we need also to have the externals included in this
Into
kind
the
of
team.
planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after we have all these kind of things done, the next thing is that we look at the threat scenarios, and we have to see that risk is also defined by likelihood and impact. So likelihood and impact is something what we will have in every kind of way of life. And we have to see if something is very likely and it comes 100%, okay, then we know how to cope with it. But we have to try to find a way for the things which are likely and having an impact. If something is not likely at all and has a huge impact, we also can ignore. So, for example, Mr. Kim in North Korea sent a nuclear missile straight to here to blow us two up. It's a huge impact if this nuclear bomb comes here, but the likelihood is zero because this guy even don't know that we are here. So we can ignore that. We have to be realistic. And this likelihood and impact, you can do it in a general way, and it will come up in the end in a kind of matrix. Can we see that?
Yes.
And this matrix will show us that we come in the red area is the area where we should not go, orange area where we can manage, yellow and green. Green is the one which is safe, and yellow is the one where we come with a little bit of mitigation measures along. So this is, then you have a crisis plan with a real point and impact analysis, because you say, okay, if this happens, this will be the impact on our business, on my business, on my employees, on my colleagues, and then we can move ahead.
By the way, can we also account the previous experience as the information for assessing the impact? Will that also count it as the data or information for assessing impacts?
Yes. I mean, one of the things is, if we talk about crisis management, business continuity management, or crisis management, of course, we talk about a history.
Okay.
If you are new, if your business is new, you have to start it new. But then it should be permanent. So, as I know, because it's the same year as my birthday, AIT was built in 1959. So normally you should have piles of data for crisis management.
Right.
If it's real, you have to check out. But normally it's forgotten. The crisis from 2011, from the big flood, maybe still in some memories because some of the people are still working here. But the crisis of 1976, 1975, most likely forgotten because people are retired, people are not anymore alive, and so the data is lost.
Right.
So one of the things of crisis management is also that you always keep your data very actual and of course in a safe place. Don't forget, if you put anything on the cloud, you are not the owner of your data anymore because the cloud owner is the owner.
Right.
So you have to find a way how to store this data. In old times, it was the file and the folder with lots of paper, but everybody who works with paper knows that some of the copies from the thermal copier disappeared after 5 years. There's nothing than a white piece of paper.
Right.
So if you go back, and I do a couple of audits of contingency plannings, and you can see that data older than 5 years hardly you can get from the businesses. And this is one problem because a lot of institutional knowledge get lost.
Right.
And you can draw on that and even sometimes have the solution. If you talk about COVID 2020, when it's just started, who were drawing on the experiences from SARS in 2002? Almost nobody.
Yeah, we've forgotten. Yes.
Even though SARS 2 and COVID 19 is from the same stem of the virus. So it was obviously that this will come again.
Right.
So do we have that? No, we don't look at our institutional knowledge anymore. Unfortunately. And if you look, if you go for the standard tabletop exercises in business continuity planning, one of the standard part is, like we call it, a pandemic flu hits.
Okay.
We trained this since 2015. But people think, oh, it will never hit us. So that's one of the things. The biggest problem is to get people aware that these dangers are here and these dangers has to be coped with. Because most of the people think, oh, it's not hitting me, it's hitting the others. So why I shall care? But this is the wrong approach. I'm not someone who is an alarmist. You have to be permanently paranoid of this or that. No. But you cannot deny in a permanent state of denial of any kind of threat or danger. So with this kind of things, if we train this regularly, some things should go differently and some smaller businesses could react better. But we never really look at this. People go for training to enjoy Bangkok. People go for training to have a couple of nice days out of office. And now doing it online, I can even stay home to go to training, so I don't need to do anything. And most of the things are not really implemented in the end of the day, which is a pity.
Right.
Okay, then the next topic would be the business impact analysis, which is very clear on the business. If the business is so hard hit that it's down, how long can my business be down before I'm totally out? For example, if you go for Europe, 1, 2, 3, 4 lockdowns for some of the countries, but mainly also here in Thailand, tourism industry. Now, how long the tourism industry can be down before they are totally out? And we can see this almost every day. You go in downtown Bangkok, you see 5-star hotels closed. You see occupancy rates in the lower class, 3-star, 4 stars, down to 10%. With 10% occupation, nobody can survive on long term. Right. So the next 2-3 years, more people will be out. So this is one crucial thing. So what we can do, there are some creative people like Thai Airways sell their catering. So the flight captains normally being the ones over the air, just selling the croissants. Yeah, it's a way to make a minimum survival. Not really making business, but just keeping a minimum survival, and also try to keep people in the business. But if it drags long, then it's really existential, and then we have to go back and we have to admit what we are doing if we close down, when we close down.
Right.
The dragging on forever is not possible. And the state government will help as much as possible, but they cannot help 100%. And if we look at the numbers, as far as I got, 1.4 million people lost their job in Thailand in the tourism industry already.
Right, right.
So the next topic would be for a strategic plan. What is the recovery?
Right.
If things picking up, how I can recover?
Exactly.
Can I come back? Or if I'm so dead that nothing comes back?
In the worst case scenario, yes. Yes.
So this is part of the business continuity management, to really look for prevention, reaction, and then recovery.
Right.
But the recovery is the most complicated part. Depends on how hard you are hit. If you have like the Suez Canal 1 week, no tomatoes, fine, you can survive.
Yes.
But if you have 1.5 years, no tourists, that's a different topic.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, what I can hear that in the worst case scenario, or at the end of the day, the shareholders or the board of the organization has to decide. But then the team, crisis management team, has also to propose something that makes sense to the organizations, and also making sure that organizational ethic and also the how to look after their employees also becoming very important to make that decision. So it's all very complex, of course, but the analysis part is also how we can set up the plan for best case and also the worst case, and at the end games, the board has to decide, the shareholder has to decide whether we continue, we close for a while, or we totally close. And that is also confirming that the strategic level is very important, and also the board members and also the owners also has to be informed all the time what is going on during the crisis, and how the company also react to that crisis on a day-to-day basis. So it's very, very interesting.
I mean, let's say one of the key points of the whole thing is the mindset. The mindset is that most of the people say, if it happens. But this is the wrong approach. It should always, the plan should say, when it happens. There is no if. At one stage, something will happen.
Right.
Okay, now disaster like the pandemic on a global scale, this will happen once in 100 years or something, or maybe faster now. But incidents on the small part, fire, water, security breaches, cyber attacks, you have on a daily business, on a daily basis. So fraud, burglaries, depending on. So you have to see, you have to make the analysis, but always with the mindset, when it happens, what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Not if it happens. Because if means I put myself back in the seat, I sit very comfortable and say if. No, when it happens, I have to react. And so if I have a plan for how to deal with fraud, how to deal with material loss or data loss, then this plan needs to be tested. I mean, the best contingency plan is useless if nobody knows it.
Just when you are mentioning about this, very, very, there is a point where we are coming in between, where we have to make a decisions. And if it is that there is a when it happened or there is a worst case scenario, so we would say, then why don't we use the insurance to address these risks and then just get rid of these risks? So how this going to do with the day-to-day business? Can we use the insurance services or the financial services to have overcome this challenge? Is that a wise way of making decision?
Insurance is normally what you have to check in the very first point in the regulatory review,
Right.
when we started it. And frankly speaking, insurance coverage is a nice word, but if you don't look at the small print in the contract, you may be surprised what is not covered. And so there is a lot of things we will cover if there is this done, but if this not done, we will not cover. Out of the normal way, I want to make an example. There was one Danish guy who was abducted in Libya from a Norwegian charity organization, and he was shot, and after he was freed, so he sued this Norwegian agency. So the way was, to put it simple, he never received any training for hostile environment. He never received any training for kidnapping. He never received any medical attention after he was released, nor psychological support. And to put a long story short, the charity, the Norwegian charity, was charged by the European court with £350,000 plus all the costs of the court case. So it came up to $750,000 roughly.
Right.
Yeah. So insurance coverage is good, but if you have all the precautions done, and business continuity management, business continuity planning is one of the parts that insurance will pay. If you don't have that, insurance will not pay. Because they are also looking for making business, not to pay.
Right.
So leave it to you. And so this is one of the things which is important to mention, that just having an insurance policy somewhere, it doesn't help. Read to the small print what are the conditions that the insurance pay.
Yeah. I think I can also see the reason behind that as well, that if the organization is also looking forward for the sustainability, they would try their best to be able to survive for a long time with their own ways of managing the business, right? So I think that is something that very important to look at in terms of how the business really see the value of it exists before using any kind of intervention that they just want to use, but not to maintain the values, perhaps. Yeah.
And I think AIT and us, we are partnering already a long time together. We are hitting some of these points because training is one crucial point for insurances and also for the crisis management planning. If you have everything on paper but you don't train the people, then it doesn't help. So the training can be practical, can be online, but it has to be done. Just to watch or talk about first aid and how to stop a bleeding doesn't mean that in reality, if there's an accident, you can stop the bleeding. Or if you have a heart attack in an auditorium, and then you just pray, hopefully there's a doctor in this auditorium. But normally you should react, and you cannot do this without training, because otherwise you will endanger the person. And if we have now the new AEDs, the defibrillator, the Thai government says very clear, just operated by trained personnel. even it's nicely written with pictograms how to do it, but as a former soldier, I have to say there is nothing totally idiot proof, not possible.
Right.
So you need some training to use it properly. And also on top of that, what you need for once you have to establish the plans or you had this plan drafted, you share it with the stakeholders and they have to give their inputs as well. For example, if you have a supply chain, if you have a kind of hibernation system, you say, okay, we have the flood coming in, we have to hibernate, we cannot work normal. Supply chain support need to be informed how they have to react. So they have to put their business continuity management on this as well.
Right.
So we have to have, and this is one of the key points for everything, we have to have a permanent 360-degree communication. And this is one thing which is very, very difficult to keep, because once the crisis management team is set up and meet in kind of closed door session and start drafting the plan, the question is when it will be distributed, who will distribute and who will be in the end the communicator. And if there's no person in charge, then comes the old rule, oh, I think he did it and you think I did it. So and nobody does it. So this is the problem, that today, especially, let's say, supply chain supporting businesses are mostly let alone from the big companies and conglomerates, because the big ones have their plan and the small ones, they have to see how they survive. You see that again in the actual crisis in the tourism industry. The small ones are going out and down, while the big ones still can manage somehow. You see rarely that a Marriott group hotel is closed down, but smaller hotels are just dead. So communication is important, and the communication should be clear and structured.
Right.
And I mean, especially communication in crisis, if the crisis really hits, also demands that the CEO, the president, the head of the organization steps forward and talk. Yes, you have a spokesperson for minor and daily press conferences or press briefings, but at the key points and key junctions in one crisis, the big boss has to come out and talk.
Right.
If he or she doesn't do it, then the credibility in the crisis management goes down very fast, very quick.
Right. So when this is coming to the supply chain, I think the message also has to go to the customers as well. I mean, from our direct experience for AIT, because now we are having the crisis of the pandemic, and we also have to make sure that also we keep communication with our partners, with our donor agencies, so that AIT can still support them during the time of the crisis, and showing the willingness that we still would like to work with the partners and collaborators, so that the momentum of the business is moving on, although we have some barrier, but we try to find the ways by maybe online, by working in a distance, so that we can support the partners. So when you mentioned supply chain is a big thing, and also it's very important now, we not only in the chains of the internal matter, but also reach out to who really the one who keep the values of the brands there. And customers is one of that.
Communication in crisis, the main point is also to say, we will be back.
We will be back.
We will be back, and please work with us again or buy our product again. This is the way how communication works, especially in crisis. And this is also, let's say, the way of recovery. Communication is not just prevention and reaction, but it's mainly recovery. To get the message out, we will be back, we will be with you, please be with us as well.
Right. So all of this, when we are giving a concern to the skills of the organization that should have, and that may be going into how the organization should upgrade or reskills their employees or their staff in order to be able to do the BCM. What we have to do about this planning for reskilling or preparation of the skills in the form of, maybe kind of educations, knowledge transfer or trainings, anything like that. Can you mention something about that?
Yeah, generally, if you design trainings for business continuity planning, you can do it in several steps. You can do it in the, let's say, workforce level, medium management, top management level. You can design trainings, tabletop exercises for the top level, which is very important. We did it for Indonesia, in Indonesia for a big company, one of the biggest in Indonesia, and on the vice president level. And these tabletop exercises were quite eye-opening for them because they are used for daily business decisions, but not used for daily crisis decisions. Decision making in crisis is a little bit different because you may have not enough information, while in the normal life you have to distinguish from all the overflow of information what you have, what is important for you. But in a crisis, you may have a lack of information and you have still to make a decision. And this is something which is especially for the higher level, something new. Training for medium management and, let's say, team leaders on the workforce level should be done that there is a basic understanding from the situational awareness, from the planning of daily life, of personal life, as well as company and corporate interests. So one of the problems of business continuity plan is you cannot put just your individual safety first. You have to put also the company survival into your consideration. Yes, everybody wants to save themselves first, but if the company goes down, you most likely go also down. So we have to take this in consideration, and this makes decision making for the individual rather complicated.
Right. Another thing that just came up to my mind is that how frequent we have to practice or do a kind of a refreshing. We may not be able to use, the skills as we expect as always, because crisis may not come at all. But then the company will have to reinvest in making sure that the skill is there. So what is your comment about this? We do have to do a kind of refreshing and retraining and keep on alert people that this is something important.
Okay, I mean, if you look at the training sequence, everybody who joined the company should be trained within the first 6 weeks. Just to have the idea that it's really a philosophy in the business or in the company that there is a crisis management and what is your role in this whole system. Then the retraining number one should be in a more detailed one after latest 1 year. And then on a second level, maybe reduce just 1 day refresher every year, once a year. But nevertheless, experience shows that many people forget already after 2 days. But we cannot train every 2 days because we are crisis managers. So we prepare for something which we hope that will never happen. That's different from the business. You train a business skill, a sales skill, or technical skill to make your product happen, and it should be sold. But crisis, we train something, what we happen, you should never use in your life.
Right.
So the rhythm of annual refresher with a good startup and then annual refresher is the best.
My last question is about the crisis management team. So of course I think this team is one of the target teams that we need to give training for them. And on a day-to-day basis, how we gonna make sure that this team has the job to do, regularly. So when there is no crisis and they already have the job to train people on the crisis management, but in other time, what is actually their activities in order to make organizations to aware all the time that these things is so crucial.
Okay, the crisis management team and the incident management team itself, they should be having regular meetings at least every 3 months. And if necessary, also they should have some added up training. Like we said earlier, now we have the new situation with psychosocial support, which most of the people have no much experience with that. So you have to add up special courses or special short courses, 1 or 2 days maybe, for the crisis management team or incident management teams. They have to meet more regularly. Crisis management team as a strategic level, maybe every 6 months, but incident management team every 3 months. And incidents, like I said, fire, water, data breach is something what happen much more frequently. So there is no need for a strategic reorientation, except it's a major one. But the rest for the regular meetings should be every 3 months. And then experts from outside can support, can help, and can be invited for that.
So we are coming to the end of the program. Maybe you have 1 minute to say the last, maybe finals, words for our audience to, keep in mind these things.
Okay, first of all, thank you to be here again. Just an information, for the last 10 years we worked together and we introduced some of the topics what I was talking about today already in running courses of AIT as part of it, but not as a full course. So the key point for crisis management is your mindset. Your mindset is not if it happens, but when it happens. And the situational awareness. 90% of all incidents are happening because our situational awareness is not there. So you go in the evening in a dark corner, you know you should not go, but you still go, and someone mug you or rob you. Yeah, that's the way of lack of situational awareness. Just in the end, a small example. If you go to the BTS in Bangkok, you can see many ladies having their handbags open. You see the mobile phones, you see the purses, and it's easy to snatch that. They would not even recognize because they are playing on the second mobile phone. So yeah, situational awareness and mobile phone use in public doesn't go well along.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilfred Herman, for your conversation today. Very interesting one, and we are looking forward to have you work with AIT on the future short training programs. And also, we would like to receive the feedback from the audience so that after we distribute these records of this Facebook Live, if any one of you would like to give us the feedback or suggestion, so anything that we should incorporate into the training program, please feel free to do so that we can make the program relevant to the audience and then to your business, to your company, and then we will give you the information further, what will be the progress that we are developing this into the short program. We want to see that the short training program in the future will benefit to your companies and your organization. So thank you once again. We will see you again next time, maybe 15 days from now. We see you again with another program. And again, thank you, Dr. Wilfred Herman, for today, and thank you, the audience, for this time. We say goodbye. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.